In the Backlands, a cursed word can be deadlier than any bullet, and that's exactly what happened the day a greedy merchant condemned an innocent man to death. But the Backlands never forget, and neither does Lampião. Today, you're going to hear the story of a dark day, when the captain ordered a man's tongue cut out for killing with words, a true story, soaked in symbolism, still echoing in the dry lands of the Northeast. If you believe lies come at a price, hit the like button and drop a comment. Was justice served or not? Now brace your heart and come with me to the Backlands. Let's go. It was a forgotten village, buried in dust and cactus thorns, where even silence seemed afraid to make a sound. Mud brick houses, shuttered windows, simple folk surviving on what little the land gave. There, every word carried weight, and those who talked too much paid dearly. Juvenal ran the general store. Smooth talker, easy smile, sly eyes that always seemed to know more than he said, kept a pen in his shirt pocket like he was some kind of doctor. But he'd never made it past the 4th grade. Most of what he knew came from hearsay, and that's where the danger lived. One morning it all began. 2 exhausted soldiers from the state patrol stumbled into the village. Their clothes dusty, foreheads dripping sweat. They'd spent days tracking Lampião's men through the brush. They stopped at the store, asked for water, then a shot of cachaça. As the liquor kicked in, the whispers started. One of them, a loose-lipped one, mumbled, "Wish we knew who's hiding Lampião." But no one's talking. Juvenal, eavesdropping nearby, widened his eyes. He didn't understand the whole thing, but he didn't need to. All it took was a lie, well-placed and sharp enough. Truth didn't matter, only the effect it would. Cause, he stepped outside, called out to one guy, then another, and dropped the news like it was gospel. "You didn't hear? That fella Sebastião, the one helping Lampião, he sold him out to the state patrol. Got 20 silver. Coins for it. Too late, though. The cangacheros already found out everything. People listened. And in the Backlands, when people listen, they repeat. And when they repeat, they believe. Within hours, Juvenal's lie became market-day truth. Dona Marieta cried, swearing she'd always had a bad feeling. Old Alfredo was already talking about tearing Sebastião's front door off its hinges. The venom spread faster than fire on dry straw. Poor Sebastião had no idea. He was out in the field, cutting cactus for his animals, when a silent patrol crept up behind him like a shadow over the hills. He didn't run, didn't try to explain. They took him without saying a word. He thought maybe they'd ask questions, but questions never came. That night, distant gunshots echoed. Few heard, none asked. 2 days later, his body was found by the river bend. Shot through the chest, executed, no honor, no defense, not even the right to speak. Back in the village, some faked surprise, others sorrow, but no one said a word because deep down they all knew. They'd helped kill an innocent man, and Juvenal, still behind his counter, selling flour, as if nothing ever happened. But in the Backlands, a lie is a debt, and some folks collect with interest. The sun had just dipped behind the hills when, weeks later, Zé Capim rode into the camp, an old cowboy, trusted ally. Face burned by sun, hat soaked in sweat, eyes dark with things seen and never spoken. He stopped in front of the cangacheros, catching his breath. Asked to speak with the captain. Lampião sat on a rock, cleaning his rifle with a scrap of cloth, his glasses low on his nose, didn't even look up. "Speak, Zé," he said. The cowboy took off his hat, looked around, breathed deep. "Sebastião was killed, Captain, shot by the river bend. The patrol claims he gave up info on your men, but it's a lie planted by a merchant in the village. Name's Juvenal." Lampião's hands stopped. The cloth froze in mid-motion. He raised his eyes behind the round lenses and stared at Zekapim, who swallowed hard. The fire crackled nearby. Maria Bonita paused, needle mid-stitch. A thick silence fell over the camp. "Juvenal," Lampion repeated low. He said that? Told the whole village. Said Sebastio sold out for silver. The patrol just finished the job." Lampion nodded slowly, like he'd heard this all before. And maybe he had. It wasn't the first time a lie had killed, but it was the first time it had killed one of his own, and that he would not forgive. He stood, folded the cloth, looked to the sky, then the ground, and muttered, "A man may die from a bullet, but some bullets come from the mouths of others." No one dared respond. Maria Bonita stepped close, touched his arm, whispered, "Captain, this won't bring Sebastião back." Lampion turned to her, eyes hard. "No, but it'll teach people to weigh their words." Then he faced his men. "At dawn we ride to the village," said the captain. "I want silence, I want speed, and I want Midnight's machete sharp." Midnight, leaning against a tree with an unlit cigarette in his mouth, smirked. He knew exactly what that meant. When the captain asked for his blade, it wasn't for slicing goat meat. That night the camp went dead quiet. No prayers, no farewells, just the dry clink of spurs on dirt, belts being buckled, rifles being checked. Zé Valente's men were ready. This wasn't about justice anymore. This was about trampled honor. At first light, they left the camp without a word, no hurry, because revenge, unlike rage, knows how to wait. And in Zé's mind, one sentence echoed like a bell. He killed with words, he'll pay with what he used. The village woke like any other morning, smell of cornbread in the air, cows mooing, kids chasing chickens. But something felt off, a silence, heavier than usual. Even the dogs didn't bark. It was like the very ground was holding its breath. Around 9 o'clock the warning arrived. A dusty mule driver from the Engenho Velo road came yelling, "Zé Valente's coming, with a whole battalion of men." Fear swept through the village. Doors slammed like frightened books. Women yanked their children by the arms. The pharmacist killed the lights in his shop, and the town sheriff, who loved lecturing poor folks, vanished without leaving even his boots behind. Those who could run did, those who couldn't hid behind the church cross. At the Ferreirinha brothers' store, Cosme was stacking sugar sacks when he heard the news. His blood froze. He tried, slipping out the back, but two men were already waiting. One held a double-barrel shotgun. The other chewed tobacco and had a glass eye. "The colonel wants a word, loose tongue." They grabbed Cosme by the collar, dragged him down the village's main road, dust clouding behind him. In the center, the riders were forming a line. Zé Valente sat still on his sorrel horse, looking at the town with a calm that hurt worse than a scream. He dismounted like he was stepping into his own backyard. "Bring the talker," he said. Not loud. Didn't need to be. Cosme was thrown in front of the old chapel, tried to stand, but Tonho Gavion's heavy hand knocked him down again. Zé spoke, voice as cold as a judge's gavel. "You the one who said my son was a thief," Cosme stammered. I just repeated what folks were saying. I swear I meant no harm." Zé paused, then raised his voice for everyone to hear. And everyone heard. And no one said otherwise. So now everyone's going to see what happens. When a tongue turns into a knife. Two of his men tied Cosme to an old tree stump. He squirmed, begged, cried like a starving child. Zé bent down, picked up a handful of dirt, let it run between his fingers. "In the Backlands, we're born from the earth, and return to it. But some deaths even the land refuses, like the death of an innocent, caused by a coward's tongue." He stared at the ground, took a deep breath, then gave the order. "Bring the iron." Tonho Gavion returned, holding a rod of red-hot iron, fresh from the fire. Its glow danced in the eyes of those peeking. Through the shutters, this punishment wouldn't just be carved into flesh, it would be carved into memory. Zay stepped closer to the prisoner, his voice low, but every word cut like a blade. Talkative men don't die, but they never speak of what they don't know again. He screamed before the pain even arrived, screamed as though he could scare away his fate, like a cornered animal, like a man who knew this would be the last sun he'd see in the desert. His bound hands trembled as much as his legs, and his thin body barely held up, kneeling before the wooden cross that decorated the town square. His wide eyes begged for help from every window, every crack, but all he found was silence and wood. Closed doors don't just hide fear, they also hide complicity. João do Norte, with his hat low and rifle on his back, watched everything, standing next to the trunk. He was the one in charge now, and here, in this dusty square, there was no judgment or absolution, only sentencing. Stay quiet, it'll be more dignified. For God's sake, João, please listen. I never spoke ill of your brother, it was the people. The people are silent, but you shouted. The whole town heard your lie. João clenched his teeth. His brother had hanged himself 3 days earlier. Reason, shame. Shame from the story made up in the store, where Antenor, drunk and full of himself, said the boy had slept with a married man. A lie, malice disguised as gossip. But the damage couldn't be erased with forgiveness. João motioned with his hand. 2 men approached. One held Antenor's shoulders. The other brought a leather bag. From it they pulled out a fine, shiny razor. It was with your tongue that you killed my brother. João, for the love of God, I'm a father. He was too. No more words. João knelt, pressed the merchant's head against the trunk, and in one swift, cold, decisive motion, he slashed the razor across the liar's open mouth. A hoarse, muffled groan. Blood gushed out like a contained scream. The tongue fell, and silence fell with it. The square, once made of clay, now smelled of iron and fear. João stood up, covered the merchant's head with an embroidered cloth, the same one his mother used to cover hot bread, and drove the razor into the ground, close to the trunk. He spoke softly, but it echoed, let every word have weight, and let every lie have a price. The men around said nothing, but in each of their eyes it was written, the justice of the desert may be dry, but it is never lukewarm. Lampion took his hat slowly. His voice was low but cutting. Now he's learned to be silent. He turned and walked to his horse. Didn't look back. The blood-stained cloth flew in the wind, carrying with it the guilt of that village. It wasn't just silence. It was a weight in the air, a warning that still lingered after the sentence. Lampion continued down the main street, in no hurry. Behind the closed doors, only the sound of held breath could be heard, until he stopped. In front of the humble house of Donna Antonia, widow of Sebastian. She sat on the doorstep, a black scarf tied around her head, her face dry from crying. But now, she no longer cried. Lampion dismounted. He took a small leather pouch from his saddlebags. Heavy. This here is from the sweat of many a desert man. Now it's yours. She didn't answer. She just looked him in the eyes. Longer than just a second. Then she extended her calloused hands and took the pouch. The sound of coins inside echoed like gunfire. He never betrayed anyone, Captain. He died calling your name. Lampion nodded slightly. The eyes behind his glasses were red, maybe from the dust, maybe from something else he didn't let slip. I know. And I did what was right. He turned to the hidden crowd. He knew they were listening. I'm not the paper of justice, not a judge, but I'm not blind either. In my desert, words are worth more than writing. and whoever uses their tongue to kill dies by the tongue." He fell silent, then raised his voice like he was driving a hot iron into leather. "Don't call me a murderer anymore. Whoever killed Sebastio was this village that stayed silent. Whoever helped was the one who spread what they heard without knowing. Today the price was paid." He mounted his horse. The bandits were already on their horses. Carisco passed by Juvenal, stretched out in the square, bloodied, tongueless, and soulless. He spat to the side. "Merchant of rotten words." The march resumed. No one looted. No one died beyond what was already marked. And still, that was the most remembered visit of Lampião, because it wasn't the fear of bullets that made the people tremble. It was the fear of talking too much. Time passed, but the village was never the same. The square, once a place for markets, and conversations became a shortcut. No one stopped by the trunk where Juvenal was tied anymore. The blood had already vanished with the rain. But the mark remained. Juvenal survived. But living was no longer a verb for him. He dragged his feet like a ghost. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He didn't look at anyone. His dry, deformed mouth only opened to receive food when someone still deigned to give it. The children called him the man of punishment and ran when they saw him. No one expelled him, but no one helped him either. The store closed. The roof fell. The buried coins disappeared, maybe stolen, maybe spent when there was still strength left. Now he slept in a corner of the abandoned warehouse. Among empty boxes and a silence that would never leave, the village began to speak in whispers. The lies withered. Rumors turned into murmurs. A man with loose lips now weighed his words like weighing gold, because Juvenal's silent face still appeared sometimes, sitting at the church door, staring into nothing. One day, a traveller stopped by. He pointed at the spectre and asked, "Who is that strange man?" A resident answered dryly, That one talked too much." The traveller laughed, not understanding, but the man didn't laugh back. "Here, lying isn't just a sin, it's a sentence. And Lampião already passed through here to remind us of that. In the desert, where everything turns into a porch tale, her juveniles became a warning. Years later, a priest wrote in a notebook, "The tongue that lies cuts deeper than a knife, but even a sharp knife breaks before the justice of a brave man." Sebastio became a remembrance of honor. Juvenal, a lesson. The village moved on, but it was never the same. The store became ruins. The clay cracked. The roof fell in silence. No one wanted to rebuild. They said the earth there tasted of blood and fear. Children were born knowing, though they didn't understand. It was passed from father to son. Don't lie, or you'll end up like the merchant. Juvenal died alone, sitting in a corner of the village, a lost look, not a word since that day. They say he didn't even scream. He just fell to the side, turned to stone in the clay, buried by 2 men paid with flour. No cross, no name, just silence. As for Sebastio, the wooden cross planted by members of the band still stood at the bend of the creek. No name written, but with eternal respect, every cowboy who passed by there tipped his hat. Some left dry flowers, others scraps of colorful cloth, honorable offerings. One day, an old man, maybe an ex-bandit, maybe just someone who saw it up close, knelt before the cross. In his hands, a rusty dagger and a piece of leather. He drove the dagger into the earth and said, "I didn't avenge you alone, compadre, but I saw with my own eyes the liar pay." In the distance a rooster crowed. The wind blew, carrying the words away. At the pillory of the village where Juvenal was tied, the mark of the machete still remained, dry, deep, definitive, and so ended. The story that no one ever forgot. The day Lampion didn't need bullets to deliver justice. All it took was a machete, a truth, and the weight of a word thrown with malice. Because in the desert, when the captain speaks, no one whispers. And when he's silent, someone is forever. If you like this story, leave a like to encourage me to bring more tales from the Cangacho of Lampion and this desert full of dust, honor and silence that speaks too loudly. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and see you next time.